sense of a lot of the rules. So, welcome to the Enablers. My name is Joe Southwell, and I'm an entrepreneur.
Hi, Joe.
Thank you. So, if you're just joining us, our guest this week is Mitch Rogers. He owns a brick in the yard mold supply. So, I've used you guys in the past for some unusual situations. You do molding and casting. You've brought us some of your work here,
yes.
which is absolutely amazing. You also have a YouTube channel.
I do, yes.
Which is basically they're instructional videos, but really it's a great to look at and learn why your job sucks more than his, because there's a lot of live casting of beautiful women.
Hey.
So it's an important skill.
These are some of these things somebody has to do. There are some jobs that are not going to do themselves.
No, right, and
somebody's got to be there.
Somebody
to do that.
does have to do it.
Yes, we supply. We are a supply shop, much like a brick and mortar hardware store,
right,
except for the mold making industry. And of course, everything has to be made. And where we help is with small manufacturers and prototypers that are building new products, introducing new products.
Totally forgot to take off the jacket.
So we have a lot of people that are bringing out new products, and we cater to just a lot of small manufacturers in general, just people doing resin casting, people doing making concrete. Pretty much the entire concrete business is short run manufacturing, because you're never going to make
2,000
200,000 windowsills.
Right.
That's so things like that where people need specialized parts. That's where we
and
supply.
You guys just handle the supply aspect of it. You don't
do.
You don't do much molding or casting of your own.
Right.
Except demos or trials,
right. My experience is in the I used to do cast stone molds and prosthetic molds and a lot of different things, and that was that I harnessed all of that knowledge to start my shop.
Okay.
And we stay out of the custom end, just because that's up to the customers. We teach workshops and things like that, but we give them our expertise, but we try to stay out of the actual hands-on custom side of it, just because that's
just try to stay out of the production.
Right,
end of it.
right. That's
they're
they can buy all the stuff, and we'll equip them with the knowledge on how to use it. So if you need to reproduce a widget and make it in plastic, we can help you out.
A lot of small business owners, people think about manufacturing. They have a prototype, they have an idea, they have an invention, they have a widget, they have a whatever, right? Even if it's just jewelry. And I've seen stuff like DAP Plastics does a lot of sort of molding and casting sort of things. It's often kind of gemstones and that sort of stuff. And I don't know if they're a supplier of yours or how you handle that, but most people, I think, they tend to think in sort of there's two big categories as far as things that you can have, right? That there's the absolute do-it-yourself. You're going to build it from scratch and then sell that one item, and then go contact a manufacturer, right? And that's absolutely not the case. There's a whole area in between where you're not handling off your production. You're not handing off. You don't need 200,000 units of whatever you need. You can do it yourself, right?
Well,
and you can handle the manufacturing yourself.
To give you a good case study of one of our customers, a friend of mine, Lars Ebersold, who might be watching, I don't know, but give her a quick plug. But her shop setup is a good example of a lot of our customer base, where she initially came to us just showing me some of her work that was sculpted in Sculpey. And then she was making the end product in Sculpey and then hand painting these, and they took off.
Just real quick, go ahead, and for those of us that don't know what Sculpey is, I myself have included.
Well, then let me allow me. Sculpey is a modeling clay that, unlike regular pottery clay that you fire at 1,200 degrees, Sculpey you put in the oven at low temperatures and bake it, and it solidifies, and it feels like a hard plastic.
What temp?
It's like 150 degrees or so.
Just like jerky.
Yeah. so it's
very familiar with
that. But it's basically a polymer clay, and a lot of people work in that, and they use that to then make the end product.
Okay.
So then they can hand paint it or whatever. Well, she was making these little widgets one at a time, hand painting them, sending them off, and I said, you should really think about molding these and then casting these in resin, so you're not having to hand make every single one of these. It's like baking cookies one at a time. So so she found some of her more popular pieces, and we made molds of those, and then she took it and ran with it. Now she's producing like little Christmas ornaments. Every year around this time, she goes crazy producing all kinds of different Christmas ornaments of different anime characters and all kinds of things that otherwise wouldn't exist, that just aren't out there. These weird, obscure characters that she'll sculpt and then mold and then cast in resin, that people can either collect these things or whatever. But it's things like that where it was either make them one at a time, or wait, I could switch over to a manufacturing process that, a short-run manufacturing process where I can make, say, 200 or 300 things, rather than otherwise. The next step beyond us is when somebody has a product that really takes off. Once they prototype that out and work out all the bugs in the prototype, then they could take that to an injection molding company, and then they're out of our league. That's where we're kind of the stepping stone onto that injection molding and bigger production.
So people don't necessarily have to make that huge leap. They can kind of,
exactly. Most people that are working in a studio, especially doing art casting and things like that, they're never going to get to that point, because that, of course, devalues their art. If you're doing little widgets that, suddenly there's 20,000 of them now, you can't sell them for $50 a piece.
It's not an original.
So, right? Yeah. Right. So.
You could do that, but also you have to consider that. With your example, was the lady still hand painting them?
Yes, they're all still hand painted, and that was my point. Was she was worried that molding and casting would devalue it, that it would be a reproduction. But you look at like art bronze is the same way. You never buy the original sculpture when you buy art bronze.
Right.
You're buying a cast from that original part, because there's no way you can get that original.
Right.
So
especially
it's
like with the lost cast or lost wax method.
and you're still getting that personalized treatment of somebody hand painting it, but at least for her, she's not having to individually sculpt these things out one at a time, and that's huge on the time saving end. So anyway, so that's a example. Then we also have we have to cast a pretty wide net, because obviously not everybody's making fake heads.
Right.
Speaking of which, do we have that in the shot? Oh, fantastic! Good.
Yeah.
So we sell a lot of things to the film industry, because a lot of what we supply is everything in the film industry, especially in special effects, is short-run manufacturing, where you say, I got to make a copy of this guy and blow him up. Well, you're manufacturing a person, basically. So that's where we have to have realistic elastomers that feel and look like human skin. So we have that, but since we have to have this wide spectrum, we sell to everything from the home building market, people making custom fireplaces and things like that, to the people making resin widgets, electronic components, medical simulators that also use this. They'll actually pot the electronics in some of the resin, like the resin that's behind her head that we used for.
Oh God!
Here. But
can I?
Oh yeah.
All right. Can I just do like this, like, hello, Clarice? I'm sorry.
Yeah, please.
You've heard them all.
Now this is where
I ate his liver with some fava beans.
This is where Facebook is gonna say Abby is amongst us right now.
I mean, seriously, I
that's amazing. I love this.
With some
sorry.
fava beans and a nice Chianti.
Like when as soon as I saw it, I wanted to do that, but I had to hold off for a while.
No, I really did too.
That's incredible. Okay, sorry. So, back to what we were talking about.
Right, so in the idea of building your niche, so you've got all these different things. It's interesting to me that, and this is kind of an interesting area where we have a lot of similarity, right? I do engraving, and so sometimes I'm out doing promotional events, right? Someone's trying to promote a wine or a perfume or something, and I'm there at the store and doing the engraving. Sometimes people are sending me something like an urn or other else to be engraved. It's the same skill that is, but it's sold to a lot of different markets, right? And so yes, you're molding and casting supply, but you're still able to almost kind of carve out a different. You're different for whoever your customer is.
Well, it's interesting. For our niche,
Mm-hmm.
if I can pronounce it that
Nietzsche.
way. Are we
Well,
going with
Nietzsche.
Nietzsche or
There's a huge debate
Niche, or
about
what are we?
it's
What are we
niche,
going?
I mean,
Are we
Nietzsche.
going philosopher
Nietzsche.
pronunciation?
Wait, no.
Nietzsche.
All right.
So-
So we've got 4. We got niche,
Niche.
niche,
Niche.
Nietzsche,
Nietzsche.
and niche. So take your pick. We're probably going to use all 4.
I learned it as niche, so that's what
I
I'm gonna
did
use.
too.
Okay, what about you?
And then I was corrected to niche.
Niche.
And then I realized that
Niche.
person was just pretentious.
You learned niche.
Niche.
Niche. Oh, there's 5 now.
Yeah.
We're just going to have a lot of fun with the word.
Right.
I'll do that.
Nicky.
I can
Nicky.
butcher the English language very
Hey,
effectively.
I
so.
resemble that comment.
Yes.
We just call it Nicky.
So the to bring it back to the niche
Yeah.
thing, the niche thing.
Nietzsche.
One of the things when I got into this business, one of the things I realized I had a lot of people coming to me. This is way before I even thought of selling this kind of stuff. I had a lot of people coming to me saying, "Hey, I want you to meet so and so. He wants to make a mold of X, and how should he do this?" And I realized that my experience from I'd worked at that point for about 5 or 6 different shops that did different types of molding and casting. And because all of this manufacturing stuff was very hush-hush, a lot of the techniques, everybody thought they had invented it. Nobody wanted to share ideas.
Really, the industry was that.
Oh yeah, very
That's
much so,
secret.
and
Wow.
it still is. It's still there's a lot of secrecy. There are a lot of people in certain veins, like in certain parts of special effects are still like that. Like the people that make breakaway bottles, there are certain tricks that they use that they do not want another human being to know how it's done. And as a result, there's only like 2 or 3 big shops that produce breakaways effectively, and everybody else is out there trying to figure out how these guys do it. So
Wow.
there's a lot of secrecy, and sometimes it's secrecy that's warranted, other times it's secrecy that's to protect ignorance. And so there's a lot of different things swirling around in that. But the main thing for me was that secrecy is what ultimately helped me out. Or I shouldn't say it wasn't all secrecy. A lot of it's just different shops don't want to talk to the other shop that's a competitor. So if a guy figures out a technique that works, he's not about to go run down to all the other art bronze shops.
That's
and
what I
say,
figured out.
Hey guys, here,
Right.
let me tell you what's making my life so much easier. So
And
as
that's really interesting because we talked about that last
time,
week
yeah.
on the show on protecting and sharing your ideas and where you should share and where you
Right.
should. And I really would have liked
Yeah.
to have you on that one
Yeah,
because
that-
that's
it's-
so interesting because your industry specifically is so much more hush-hush than a lot of the other ones.
well, and that's something we walk a really fine line
Well,
on
now,
because
are you
it's-
hush hush, or is it more your customers?
Well,
to be,
and that's what I was about to say.
Okay,
that with we're in a tough position because if somebody comes to me that has a manufacturing process that's proprietary or that's giving them some competitive edge, they're using some combination of our products
Right.
that's giving them an edge over their competitor. Well, it's important for me to respect that and not say, hey, everybody, even though that could ultimately help my sales out,
Right.
to go, hey, customer X is doing this and this and this, and this is great, then ultimately that sabotages that relationship with that
Yeah.
customer.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of that stuff that we have to say, okay, that's that guy's property, and I'm not going to touch that. That's his proprietary knowledge. But there's things that I come up with. There's shortcuts that I come up with when I'm playing around with supplies and techniques and everything. That if I come up with it, I'm going to share it to the world. But if it's
Well, yeah,
coming
because-
from
and
outside,
yeah,
if it's
that-
somebody else's technique, I always ask permission. 'Cause some people are really excited. They say, hey, I came up with this with your product, and I would love to share this because this really made things easier in our shop. And then, of course, we make a YouTube video about it, and
Right.
people go nuts with it. But there's also times when people say, please don't tell anybody this technique because it gives me an edge. So,
Well, and that's kind of been my experience back when I was in the wine industry, right? Is that nobody's necessarily going to tell you the information, but if you ask and you ask the right question, then the information's available,
yes.
right? And so that's kind of the same thing. You may not go out and share anything, but if someone is trying to, I can't even think of an example in your situation, but they want to cast, okay, something I came to you for recently, right? I'm trying to make a crystal clear orb with some color splashed inside, right? I'm sure somebody else has done that, or has done something along those lines, right? But that's different with me coming to you with, here is the end result that I'm trying to create, right? How would you go about doing that? And that's very different than saying, well, here's this great thing that somebody else is doing, right, and sharing it.
Yeah,
and,
can you
and
tell
kinda
me how to? We get that phone call a lot. We
Yeah.
have a lot of that where people say, here's a widget that I found. Can you
Right.
tell me how to make this? And no, we're not in the business of,
Right.
That's not really, you're not setting up a business, you're just trying to plagiarize somebody else's entire process, and that's not.
We're not going to help you do that.
Yeah, exactly. We're not an espionage tool. We are a supply shop. So,
Right.
and really back to the niche thing, I mean, that really what made us successful was not that we sold the stuff that we sold, and we sold it in Dallas, Texas, and that we had a storefront.
Right.
What made us successful was we did all these things, and I brought to that my experience, and we were very open and free with that knowledge, and we created videos, and we created a way for people that were learning to have resources available to learn the process.
Right.
And that's the missing link in between the chemicals and actually doing something with
And the result,
chemicals.
right? Yeah. Well, because that was something. I'm very much a DIY kind of person, right? I always enjoy getting there and making things. I've made clocks. I've made all sorts of different stuff, just because it's fun. And back when I was with the winery, I came to you. Mold making and casting was something I was always incredibly intimidated by. I don't know why, but it just was, right? It was like this magical process.
I even played it with it as a boy. I made I made a Star Trek comm badge from TNG, and I was so proud when I finally made that. But it was intimidating to try to get started with it.
Now hold off a second. What was the name of that? What was it? Oh God, we were all the three of us.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know how old you are, brother. Apologize, but I know
25.
I'll buy that.
Yeah, I'll buy it.
I'll buy that for $1.
So we were all really young when this came out. It was what was it? Creepy crawlers.
Yes.
It was
the little
boys'
easy bake oven.
version. It was the boys'
the
version
third degree
of
burn.
Yeah. They couldn't call it an easy bake oven, so they had to call it creepy crawlers.
It'll be great is giving children molten plastic.
Yeah,
Right.
let's
Let's have
go
them do
ahead
their
and
own
that.
vinyl pours in their house.
Pour that in there. You know,
Sounds like
you
fun.
get these nice
I
little.
never got one of those, but every time I saw that as
You
a kid,
of
I
all
was like,
people never
that
had
looks-
one of those?
No, I didn't, and I think that's why
I had an easy bake oven.
I didn't come to full mold making maturity until I was well out of college. So yeah,
Wow.
I did get on clearance one time at Circus World, which that's gonna date me right there.
A little bit.
Circus World in the mall had a clearance sale on these refill kits for something called Crazy Clone, and I don't know if anybody out there knows what Crazy Clone is. I think it was spelt with a K. I've never been able to find it again.
Okay.
But it was. I'm assuming it was alginate. It was some kind of molding compound, and they sold that, and then some plaster or stone or something to make a mold of your finger or something, and it was this. Basically, you would mold your finger and then pour up a copy and then paint it to look realistic. And I was like, wow! But all they had was the refill kits.
Now there's a glaring thing we haven't talked about at all, but that's the adult film industry. I'm sorry, but if you're dealing with flesh-like silicone rubbers, is that something you touch on?
Now this is.
I'm sorry.
I don't know what our audience is.
That is
I don't know
just fine.
I don't know what our audience is. I don't know.
No, you're fine.
Okay.
Just keep the language radio-centric.
Sure.
So our general rule is radio-appropriate words.
Sure.
But not. But
Topic is whatever you want.
I can navigate this just fine.
Right.
Just,
Wow, our viewership just went up a whole bunch.
Okay, so
in that case, we're gonna have a prostitute on.
yeah,
next time.
I mean the short answer is yes. We get lots of that. In fact, if I had known that was going to come up, I would have printed off.
Well, we're glad you brought this instead.
We have an insane amount of emails that we pass around internally for our amusement, where people ask questions about how to make certain things. Okay.
Yeah, like Clone a Willy.
And yes,
Clone a Willy.
and and so much more. Things that you and I would never think about on
Well, we're
on our
about
own.
to
If we-
now.
Well, you know what
and-
I'm into.
And
so.
you
have to share now. You have to share now.
It's
a little bit.
there are a little bit. There are things that humans are doing out there with our products. And I just say, I tell them, if you want to do this, that's fine. I'm not going to stop you, and I'll tell you which products. Like, obviously, our Platsil gels are an excellent way to mimic human skin.
I'm taking notes.
And
speaking of which, who we got watching right now?
They are safe for skin contact. Beyond that,
do they fall apart when they vibrate, or?
Beyond that, I would, that would be up for some field testing. I don't know at what frequency you could vibrate that, and before that might become a problem. I don't know.
Well, since we've walked through this door now, what is?
We actually have. I
what
will say,
are they silicone safe?
Suggestion or request or?
Can you use lubricants with them?
We have at least once a month. We have a request for someone that wants to make a very realistic some part of human genitalia.
Okay.
That they want to wear.
Sorry, I had to bring this up, guys.
Or that they want to wear or put over their genitalia or whatever. There's all kinds of combinations of things.
Put some lotion on the skin.
Because that sounds an awful lot like
and there are things which I really regrettably I don't have some of our more entertaining emails here, because we do have some hilarious emails where they're asking how to do things or what could be done, and we're just no. Like, I just don't.
You don't answer
we don't.
them.
No, we don't, because it's like a rabbit hole. You don't want to go. You don't want to know.
I don't want to.
Well, no.
That's not the niche you want.
No, you don't understand. That when to respond opens up a dialogue with someone that you probably do not want to have a dialogue with. I've made the mistake about a couple of times early on, and I realized no. You just got to walk away. When you see that email come through, you're like, some of these people. They really enjoy just talking to you about
what there needs to be is a
where you
forum.
just need to get away. What's that?
There needs to be as a forum where people can get the answers, but you can point them away from
that
you.
That would be great, because it's
if you're looking for an interesting business idea,
it's amusing to us, but at the same time there is a creepy factor to it that's off the charts. That when there's some of those, when you read them, you're just like, oh, holy cow!
They're just sitting on the other end of the computer with a hand lotion and.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. So
I feel dirty.
Yeah. So there's some of that we had a guy for a while that would come in and buy some of the products that fit that combination, and he wouldn't talk to us, wouldn't make eye contact with us, was in and out. It took a couple of visits of him buying the stuff for me to realize, like, wait a second.
I know what he's doing.
That. Yeah.
I know.
That's
well,
why
you know
I can't.
what?
Ultra Cal 30. He's buying some.
Yeah. So. Yeah.
Well,
so
I'm not going to say how I know this person, but someone who I know very well used to work at an adult toy store, right? And so, like, the story.
We all know who he's talking about.
Right?
By the way, here in the
Everybody, all
studio.
my friends who know.
We all know.
But
hi.
I'm not going to say if she's watching.
A she. Oh, it's a she. Okay. That narrows it down to half the population.
At any rate, the story she would tell about people coming in and being embarrassed and like trying not to make eye contact was hilarious.
See, and that's the funny thing with us is we very ignorantly have no clue that might be going on.
You're just a supply
until
shop.
I very foolishly ask something like, you want to mold your baby's arm and cast it in silicone? That doesn't make any sense. And then I realized
holding an apple.
And then I realized as soon as they walk out, we actually had that. That was actually a real question.
What
and it
a wonderful! Like, I need a
for Paris.
Go ahead on that one right there.
So until they left, my
start to put the dots together.
Yeah, I realized.
I know they were asking about
because it was a younger lady that came in, and she was asking for this, and she was saying it was for a baby's arm and all, and I was like,
yeah.
And then when she left, I was just like, that's really odd. Why would anyone want
to mold
their baby's arm in silicone? That doesn't make any sense. And then my wife was like,
it's not a baby.
It's not.
Yeah. Let me tell you something.
Not a baby's arm.
That's not what you think it is.
So that was actually one of the tamer instances, though. But to be fair, one of our biggest customers, we have a fairly large customer that produces.
You can say
it. Well, no, I can't. I can't give away without giving away their process. But they are, I wouldn't say completely in the adult. They're not. They're kind of quasi-adult, quasi-medical market.
Okay.
For people missing things. We'll say that.
Okay.
And
prosthetics.
we supply them with a fair amount of that. And on that end, that's very dry. We don't, there's no weirdness about that. It's the general public that gets a wild idea about what they think they want to do. That's the people, or the people that are like, hey, can you mold me? I saw you molding people on the internet. Could you mold me? That's another weird one that, it's like
A lot of people.
no, but I could refer somebody, and that's when I go and say, who
don't I
money?
like this week?
So we have a few.
Wow.
I'd imagine everybody showing up in your cousin's house. You're the guy. Drop trowel. Right?
There have been a few different. How did we wind up talking? How did we?
Me. It was my fault.
Yeah, that's, thanks.
I went from Silence of the Lambs to
adult toys.
And that was my fault.
All right, so we're gonna change veins real quick.
Okay.
What's our new?
This is becoming too hard of a topic.
So we are enjoying sponsorship opportunity available tonight.
My favorite
tasty.
beer.
It's my favorite beer as well.
SOA.
Actually, two different types, two different varieties
I
of
didn't
it.
even think it was beer. I thought it was just sponsorship available.
Opportunity available.
Opportunity available.
SOA.
Yeah.
SOA.
Yeah.
You shouldn't limit it by saying what it is.
Fair enough.
Valid point.
Like,
We could just be drinking
yeah.
whiskey from a bottle.
Well,
Very small bottle.
Getting to
very
what you were
sad
saying
bottle.
earlier, I think you brought up, kind of touched on an interesting point where you start in an area, and then you sort of find what your customers are wanting, and build towards that. And I think a lot of people, when they're starting their business or growing their business, or they're just kind of getting started, or like, okay, well, I want to get into my own field, I want to do my own thing. They sort of be like, okay, where's the market, and then I'm going to hit this, right? But the reality is, that's not what you hit. That's where you start.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah.
And after
Ignorance
that,
gets you into business.
ignorance gets you into business, right? Customers show you where to go.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
Right.
That's very, very true.
And that's sort of yeah.
That's really interesting. When my grandfather started his store, he had spent at the time, let's see, he was in the business for 33 years before I bought it. So he was in the meat industry for I'm gonna go ahead and round it off at about 20 years before I bought the store, or before he bought his second store. So when he bought his second store, he had a very large knowledge of what people wanted, and so when he went into business, he knew exactly what niche he wanted to fill. Which was a custom cut. You come in, we will cut everything. We're unapologetic about what we carry. We carry nothing but the very top tier, and our prices are our prices. Yes, you can find cheaper, and our motto has always been kind of, yes, you can buy it cheaper, but then you have to eat it.
Right.
And I'm sorry for that. And I cannot tell you, again, I think I actually mentioned on the first episode, I think I was a little more intoxicated because we were drinking scotch instead of beer.
Sponsorship opportunity available.
Yes.
Same company, by the way.
Yeah, it was amazing. They have all the things you could want.
Yeah, it's
beer,
true.
wine, liquor.
But what he said was, forgotten it now.
Okay.
I think that's once an episode.
But that you grow into it.
Right.
You start somewhere.
You start somewhere, and you have an idea of where you want to grow. You want to carry a certain product, a certain quality of something, and you want to deliver that to your customers.
Ties into your USP, right?
Do what?
Your unique selling proposition, your USP, what makes you different from your competitors.
Exactly. Exactly. And so you take that, and then you improve upon that, and then from there, once you've established who you are, you've carved out your little niche in the piece of the pie. Again, people ask me all the time, how do you compete against larger stores? I don't.
Right.
Yeah, you don't have to.
I don't have to. The larger stores don't carry what I do.
Right.
And they don't have the level of service that I do, or the level of quality. Debatable.
There's no competition.
There are plenty of other places
that's
that carry
different
the same
in
qualities.
that because yourself, me, you, so much of what we do is service.
Yeah.
Right. You're different. You're very different in that aspect because you might do service. You do no service. You deliberately avoid providing service. You are a supplier. And there have to be other suppliers out there. So how do you sort of position yourself differently from them? How do you navigate that field?
Well, when let's see, so we opened in 2004.
Okay.
And when I initially opened, there, we had our, again, ignorance made me think, yeah, I can do this. How hard is it? Yeah. And I jumped in, and luckily I did know enough to go in somewhat prepared, but it was still, I mean, no matter how prepared you think you are, when you actually jump off the ledge.
Well, if you knew what you were actually facing, you may not have done it.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that all the time. It's like, if I had known all this stuff that I know now,
screw that. I'm not doing that.
I think I would have just been like, I think
before I
go
jumped off that cliff, I definitely would have double checked that parachute.
Yeah, exactly. That's
you know what? I'm going to pull the whole thing out. I'm going to fold it again.
But that also kind of gets to the point of actually doing. Right, you can analyze and learn and study and take notes and research all you want to. All the research, all the knowledge in the world won't get anything done.
Right.
It actually comes down to doing it. Right, taking the plunge
and
taking
that risk where your livelihood depends on it is much different than having a day job and saying, hey, I'm going to start this thing over here on the side, because it's really difficult to take off when you're doing that. When you actually have to make it.
You got a fire under your
food.
Butt.
Then suddenly
it doesn't work. You don't eat.
That was the process I went through. I had a fire. I was like, well, if I don't, this doesn't work, I don't eat.
Yeah. So 2004 we started, and initially, I mean, we got off to we actually got off to a pretty good start, but.
Now, what did you start with?
I started with selling. I went around to suppliers that I thought, okay, what do I want to buy? What do I need that's not here? And I went around to those suppliers and said, hey, I want to open up a shop in Dallas selling X, Y, and Z. And some were receptive, some were like, who are you? Why do you want to buy this stuff? And so luckily we started out with about two or three fairly strong brands that said, okay, we don't have anybody in Dallas, we'll take a chance on you. So we started out with that, and really the bulk of our business starting out was a lot of commercial building, a lot of the concrete market, and we did some special effects, some of that, but it was more concrete related. And the funny thing was, when we went through 2007, when the housing market started to go, we realized, okay, we really got to diversify.
Yeah.
And around that same time, I had just, by dumb luck, I'd sent one of our suppliers, I had sent them a CD-ROM of some videos that I had made showing their product.
That was a very old sentence, sir.
Yes. There are people right now that are Googling, like, CD-ROM, what is that?
What the hell is a CD-ROM?
So I sent this off, and I just said, hey, here's a video we made with some of your product. And a few days later, he called up and said, man, have you checked out YouTube before? And I'm like, what's YouTube? He said, you need to get on YouTube right now. Actually, this is 2006. And
that was shortly after YouTube
and he
went
said,
live.
he said, you need to put this stuff up on YouTube like right now, because this is great. And what we had been doing up to that point was I would just give these discs away with customers when they would order, $100 worth of stuff. I'd throw in a disc, and that way they had some tutorials they could learn from. That was back before we called them tutorials, but
demos.
I started putting that on. The first, one of the videos that I had sitting around that I thought, well, shoot, I'll put it up online. It was a video of me molding a guy's hand and then casting it in silicone. And then putting it in a jar like a specimen.
That's why you got those questions.
Yes, it is, because immediately, you can see in the comments people going, really? So anything I stick into that alginate, I could then reproduce in silicone? Anything?
Amazing.
So people connected those dots quickly, but I didn't. That was not what we set out to do. I just thought this is really cool. In a time span of like 45 minutes, we made this uber realistic hand, put it in a jar, and it was around Halloween time, so it seemed like something cool to do.
Well, yeah.
And I did all the music. Yeah. And I did all the music. I didn't do any voiceover. I was terrified of doing voiceover, so I was like, I'll put this out there. And it went
nobody's
viral.
voice sounds the same.
You never.
No, seriously, looking over these videos.
I checked it the next day and it had like 100 views, and I was like, really? People want to watch this? Yeah. It's like, I was surprised.
Imagine what you would get if you did one of the other ones.
Yeah.
You wouldn't be able to use YouTube.
Yeah.
But now there are sites
for that. It's a baby's arm. Let's do a baby's arm.
Baby's arm. Then we're going to mold this. So, that that took off, and ever since, that was when we started. We realized, okay, there's a huge deficit of knowledge of good. That was when YouTube was in its infancy, and having a good tutorial was a big deal. People being able to pull up real how-to knowledge. So that really shifted our focus away from a lot of the concrete stuff, more into the special effects, because that's the stuff I knew forward and backwards and could talk about at length. So,
well, in terms of like now you do special effects. So, obviously, because I've been in your shop, so I've seen a lot of like artistic or not artistic, decorative type pieces, things like that. Architectural, I guess, is the word I was looking for. And then I've seen a lot of special effects, whatnot. Where, like, proportionally, where would you say your business is? And then you've mentioned that a lot of people come to you for just sort of, DIY, small-scale manufacturing, right? Now with 3D printers, is that becoming an issue? Is that becoming a threat?
3D printing. It's funny you say that, because initially that looked like, okay, what's that going to do to our market? Because now people get this box that builds stuff, and it's actually improved our business.
Really?
Because whenever somebody gets one of those machines, as soon as they make something that takes them like 2 days to print, the last thing you want to do is tie that printer up another 2 days to make another widget.
Right.
Okay. So as soon as they get that capability and they start making widgets, they go, well, gee, I wonder if there's some way I could reproduce this and make lots of them.
Because people don't realize how slow 3D printers are.
So you have the expense of the filament and all that. So it's not. I mean, pound for pound, it's much cheaper to cast something in polyurethane resin.
Okay.
So that has actually helped us out tremendously, because anybody that gets a printer, the next step in that process is they start going, oh, well, if I want to make this, and if I want to make this out of anything other than this filament, which is usually not conducive to an end product.
Right.
So
we're looking at price type.
Right. Well, and also that filament might not be very strong. So you say, okay, well, if I want something that mimics like ABS, then we can help them out with a plastic that would actually hold up. Because, again, you have a lot of limitations with those 3D printers. Even really good printers, the plastic is limited just by the nature of that process of printing. Okay. If you print something out, that printing process is not going to produce a part that's as strong as something injection molded in one shot. So
now does casting? I guess we should clarify a little bit. Molding is you take your original object and then you create the piece that is going to be...
Yeah, molding is typically the negative mold. Anytime we use that term, we're referring to that negative cavity like this.
Right.
Okay.
I think
casting is then like a positive that comes out of that.
So the face that you're seeing here was casted.
Well, right. This was cast into a negative mold.
Right. This object was casted, but the mold was put on the individual, and then this was cast from the mold.
Right. So that's the basic terminology for our trade is the mold is typically that negative space. The cast is the positive.
Okay. So how do casts with the different resins or polymers or the variety that you can do, how do they compare in strength or type or options relative to, say, injection molding or other more mass manufacturing options that are out there?
Well, there's some things that are just injection molding there's a lot of plastics available in that are much stronger, but you're limited by that high pressure and high heat. Okay. So right there, for most guys building something in their garage, they're not going to have that capability.
Right.
And it's super cheap. The plastic pellets that you get to do injection molding is ridiculously cheap. You buy train cars of it for not much, but the setup cost is enormous. Right. So to build say we wanted to injection mold something like this face, the tooling to produce this face, just a mold
the
this
detail
big.
The camera may not pick this up, but like you can see pores, like the individual skin pores.
So if you
this face.
If you did the tooling to reproduce this injection molded as a piece of vinyl or something like that, that would be, and I'm sure somebody will call me out on this if I'm wrong, but probably about $70,000, and that's probably low.
Okay.
So that's $70,000 at least in tooling, and that's assuming like you're going to someplace like China.
Right.
So your
yeah,
tooling
they
costs
tend to
are
do tooling out of like aluminum
and
instead of steel, so the mold won't last as long, and other issues like that.
Right.
So.
But when you have that tooling, even that is the culmination of a lot of prototyping that gets you to that stage where you're even ready to invest in that tooling.
Right.
So that's where, a guy making, say, an iPhone case or something like that, where he says, hey, I got this great idea for a custom iPhone case, and if he approaches, company X that does injection molding, they'll say, great, and your tooling costs will be something like this, might be, $20,000.
Right.
And he'll say, well, maybe not.
Maybe not. Right.
So until I do that, I could make like in our case, something like this to mold it and cast it. The mold might cost $100. So
okay.
Yeah, huge difference.
Yeah.
So
much more accessible.
Yeah, much easier entry level there. And then there's a variety of what we refer to as like room temperature cure or RTV materials that could go into that mold. And that's our specialty, is everything cures at room temperature, so they don't need an autoclave or weird pressure chambers or anything. I mean, people can do that and make even better copies, but they don't have to have that.
Well, and I guess that kind of gets back to what we were talking about earlier about there are other suppliers now, right? There's people online. There's people. There's brick and there's
even
fewer,
eBay. I go on there and I see stuff like that, and I think, do these people know what they're buying? Some of the stuff out there,
right?
And that's
so
my apprehension about selling on like Amazon or eBay. It's like, I want people to have a respect for this stuff and know that I'm buying chemicals.
Okay.
How do you think I feel about a certain mail by order steak company?
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
Exactly. Yes.
Like now, also something that I want to talk about very much tonight is the niche of a dinner magician.
Okay.
How in the hell did you get into that? First off,
Well, I started as a kid's birthday party magician. I think most magicians do. And then it really became what was the best use of my time, because that's all I do for a living, and how can I make the most money? Found out I didn't really like performing for kids. No offense if you're out there, but I don't.
Imagine that.
Well, they're a bunch of shin kickers, right? And the difference between performing for an adult and performing for a child, if an adult is kind of being a jerk, you can tell them they're being a jerk, and they'll knock it off, right? Or you can disengage. You do that at a kid's birthday party, good luck ever finding work ever again, right? So, so I was looking at what could I do in, what markets were available to me so that a magician might work in, and what paid the best for that time, for my time spent. So I started going into corporate magic, and that's been really good. But now I'm thinking about doing more and more trade shows, because that's even a better use of my time. And so that's kind of, I'm informed by what my abilities are and what my strengths and weaknesses are. We talked about the SWOT, right?
Yeah.
Strengths, weaknesses,
opportunities, threats.
And I did one of those on myself. And I found out where my strengths and weaknesses are and what types of work I could do that would be best suited to that in my field. And trade shows seem like a really great place for me, right? So that's kind of how it's. So I keep growing and changing, and as I learn more, I do more. So it's ever changing, and I don't know if I've found my exact niche yet, but I think it might be trade shows eventually. So.
Well, and I don't think that I think it's true with any business. The market is always changing, right? Whether it's housing, whether it's anything, right? The market is always changing, and you can always learn something from it. And so it's not necessarily about this is our niche, this is what we will do, this is what we will always do,
right?
Because this works now, right?
Right.
You have to play back and
people
forth.
Gotta eat.
Yeah, people got to eat, but people can eat lots of different things.
I guarantee you, as soon as the market goes down, we're one of the luxuries that's taken out.
But even within your industry, right?
Very much so.
There's variance in terms of you're not a fish market, right?
No. You want shellfish? Go somewhere else.
You have done.
I have a wonderful contact for you.
You have done game. You no longer do game.
No, we did game processing. I want to go ahead and throw that out there right now. In Texas, it is illegal to sell wild game.
Okay.
You can buy domestically raised game, But you cannot buy wild game. I don't care what anybody says. I don't care if your buddy that went and shot a deer says, give me $20 and I'll give you venison. That is illegal as hell.
Right.
If a game warden catches you doing that, it's about a $500 ticket per person involved in the transaction.
But the point still being that
legal disclaiber on that one.
Legal
I'm sorry.
disclaimer.
The raccoon meat I got in the cooler outside.
Right.
You can give it to him, but you can't.
Well, and the same was true with the wine industry. Like if you homebrew wine, yeah, you can give it to your friends, but you can't sell it. You can't accept donations, right? That's
but
still
you can
illegal.
trade for it.
It's still illegal.
Is it really?
Yeah, even then.
Oh wow.
It's anyway, legal issue aside, right?
We're not lawyers.
My point being that it still comes down to there is variance. There is finding that niche, right?
Exactly.
Meat is a giant market, right?
Very much so. It's mainly
commoditized. Do you
commoditized.
consider yourself manufacturing supplier, or kind of like how do you think of yourself in terms of your industry? Is it molding and casting?
When we're speaking when I'm talking to my bank,
right?
we usually tell them that we supply small manufacturers.
Okay.
Because that's the easiest way to say it without getting into a dissertation. All the different markets.
Right.
Because it is.
And you do serve a lot of different markets.
And ultimately, that's what everybody's doing. They're all making things on various scales.
Mm-hmm. Right. And so a lot of it comes down to getting a starting point and then listening to your customers, right, and where they will lead you. Because you can kind of look at the market or see where the gaps are, and if you see a good gap, go for it. But I think a lot of businesses grow based on where. I walked right into that one. Everyone's making faces, and I didn't catch it. All right. Fair enough. Having your customers lead you. So, do you do a lot of
Wow.
Would you say your areas of growth come from what customers are saying, or sort of where opportunities that you see, or some combination thereof? How do you look for areas to grow or carve your niche?
Usually by customers. I mean, based on what they're saying.
Word of mouth.
Yeah.
Word of mouth is
because
probably your
usually
biggest.
That's a good finger on the pulse of the industry, is just hearing, listening to, like, the effects market is always changing depending on, what kind of trends are happening.
Is CGI becoming an issue for you?
CGI is really funny because on one hand, yes, it has definitely affected practical effects, no doubt about it.
Right.
But it has also created a lot of these characters that you see, that some of them computer generated. Now people are getting into all this cosplay stuff where they want to be that character live. Well, there's no way to do that CGI walk around with a CGI suit on, so you got to make it. So we have a lot of people that, even though, and the same thing goes for like live events and things like that. There's a lot of we sold a bunch of stuff to a guy up in, I think it was Washington State, that was making a bunch of stuff for the Mad Max movies for some of the promotional stuff that was all live. They actually made these vehicles and all this display stuff to look all rusted out and everything. And obviously that had to really be done so there would actually be something for people to actually see in person. So in that respect, it's actually, again, kind of like the 3D printing, it went, we lost some of it to, some of the practical stuff just isn't needed anymore. But at the same time, in the cosplay world and things like that, you have 5 or 6 more people that have popped up that now they want to dress like their favorite superhero, and they're very meticulous about it. They want to get everything exactly screen accurate. And so now you got a lot of people making stuff, like you say about the Star Trek badge that, or whatever, I don't know what the thing's called. I said badge. That's probably horribly.
Badge is fine. We'll go with badge.
Wrong, but yeah. But anyway, things like that where people say, "Hey, I want to, dress up as character X, so I want to make the costume." So that's I still consider that kind of in the film vein, even though they aren't necessarily may not be film professionals. They're doing the same process.
It's in the entertainment vein,
right?
If nothing else. And I think that's kind of where you kind of build onto that. Customers are once you're in business, customers are always a good way to see where to grow, and you never know where I mean, you can guess, but you often do not know where the growth is or where the potential is until you have customers talking to you and asking you if you can do that, right? There are things, kind of getting back to what you said earlier, but that you wouldn't do, but there's other areas where you don't know what customers want, and you won't really even know what they want until you're actually engaged with them, you're actually talking to them.
Until they come in and ask you a question
right?
Not
so it also
the slightest, like, can I cast a baby's arm?
Right.
Hey, yes.
Well,
yes, you can.
quick question for you. Again, you carved out your niche originally with wine, and you originally did that with taking something that you and your dad did in your garage.
Kind of, yeah.
Was it a garage, or I don't remember the original story
I made
on
my
that
first
one?
batch of wine in my dorm room closet before I was 21 because it was perfectly legal for me to buy everything I needed to make wine, even though it was not legal for me to purchase wine at the time.
Right.
So, yeah.
So you carved out your niche at that
I didn't
point.
sell at that time.
Well, no, you didn't sell at the time, but you did it making honey wine, which a lot of us out there that are following us, I know a lot of our friends that know this, know what mead is. And that's originally what the concept that you were trying to create was.
Yes and no.
Yes and no.
So
okay.
What I found is when building your niche, when building your business, you really kind of have to meet people where they're at.
And time real quick, I did want to say I'm using this as a segue to get into how in the hell did you get into engraving, because I've always been curious about that, and where you went from wine to engraving. So there's a segue into that if you would.
I mean, your customers don't care about you.
No.
Right? They care about themselves, and it's your job to meet their needs. At least that's my general opinion. That's been my experience, right?
Well.
It's about that. They may kind of
I have a little bit different thing, but
totally
again,
changed my world now.
The store has been there for 35 years, and most of my customers have watched me grow up. So they do care about the family, they care about the people in the business, and they care about
but they're not
what
going
we're
to
doing.
they're not going to spend their money there if
but
you're
at the
not
same time,
taking care of
is
them,
it
right?
Is it if we're not taking care of them, if we're not
right.
providing the same product, which again, as soon as I bought the store, the thing that I wanted to do was make sure that our quality actually went up.
Right.
So that way, no one could say when they walked in, ever since the grandson bought the store, it's just gone to hell. No, I made sure that our standards and our quality went up, so everybody would perceive that it was the same.
Fair enough.
So
sorry. Like, with the wine industry, and the wine industry is unusual because you go into any grocery store, right? And there's a wall of different labels, right? So many different varieties. There's not that many varieties of soda. There's not that many varieties of cereal. There's not that many varieties of meat, right? There might be different types, but there's not like that many different types of bacon, right?
Yeah.
Not compared to wine.
No.
And so
peppered maple, regular.
It's difficult to. It's fascinating in terms of niche. How to manage that market. Some of it's branding, some of it's, it's all branding, but how you communicate that. So I got very good at making honey wine. I taught my dad. Interestingly, I was one that went from son to father instead of father to son. He was looking for a retirement business. We started it. We found out very quickly that people didn't know what honey wine was, and there wasn't even necessarily the demand specifically for honey wine out there. And so, because while we liked it, a lot of people liked it. It tasted good, but people weren't asking for it.
Right.
And so we had to, what are people wanting? What are our strengths, right? Where do those line up? And so I started looking at it, started doing analysis, and eco-friendly was becoming was really on the rise. I was
Going
like,
green.
well, how does honey stack up compared to grapes?
Apparently.
In terms of ecology, right? And it was stunning, the difference, right? I mean, like, literally 1% or 2% of the land use, right? You could get as much honey from 1% of land versus how much the equivalent amount of grapes you needed, right? No fertilizer, because no amount of fertilizer is going to help bees make honey, right? Insecticides would in fact kill the bees, so there's no insecticides, right? And we started looking at it, I was like, oh my gosh, right? This is a wonderful area, right? The water usage was less, the land usage was less, the chemicals involved were drastically less or non-existent, and I was like, okay, this is the way to do it, right? I mean, ultimately, anything you come in contact with is elements, right?
It's chemical in nature.
It's chemical in nature, right? But what utility does it serve? How do you view it? How does it help you, right? Why are you purchasing it? And so with wine, yes, flavor, right? We had flavor, but we had to have something else because having a good tasting wine at a reasonable price is your entry fee into that industry. That's not going to make you successful in that industry.
Now, question on that. Did you ever go into any of the I actually don't know the rules on this one. Any of the reenactment societies? Did you ever take that to their shows?
We gave it to them. We started looking at
like Scarborough or anything like that.
We took a look at Scarborough. The gentleman who serves the wine to Scarborough was incredibly helpful to us in getting started, and that was sort of his bread and butter. And so I'm not sure if he was joking, and I don't care. He was very helpful with getting started, and he threatened to slit my throat if I went after them. So I didn't. But that's just one market, right? What I found is that yes, you have to differentiate yourself, and that's part of how we built the niche. So I was like, okay, what else can we do? And what I found was interesting is how we ended up marketing ourselves towards the retailers was very different how we positioned ourselves for consumers.
Okay.
Right? So for retailers, we got our kosher certification, right? We got certified as kosher, which is very, very difficult as a winery. But on the honey wine side, it actually turned out to be fairly simple. So being a Texas, certified Go Texan kosher winery, we had those stamps of approval. The retailers had nothing else like it, and we were getting into places like Whole Food and Total Wine and Market Street and a number of different places in a matter of 2 years when other wineries are beating the door down for 5 or 6, right? So that got us into the retailers, but that doesn't then get us off the retailer's shelf.
Yeah.
Still got to buy your wine.
The consumers still have to buy the wine, and that's when we would go in and do tastings and talk about the ecological impact of honey wine versus grape wine, right? And so in that situation, we had to kind of create push factors versus pull factors, right? Push in that we're unique in terms of our certifications, in terms of our kosher and our Go Texan and whatnot, but then the pull in that we're very unique in terms of the ecology and whatnot, right? And so you do kind of have to look at what people are looking at. Sometimes it's, you brand yourself as whatever you are and move on. But other times, I think you're in a much stronger position if you look at your business, you look at your service, you look at your product, whatever your offering is, and say, okay, what is really different about this? Because unless it's a franchise, it's different, right? And then say, okay, here's all these things that make me unique. What are people wanting, and where can I line those pieces up?
Right. What portion of the market is exactly what people are trying to drive to?
Right.
And for instance, one of the things that we've started noticing in our industry, a lot of people are trying to go towards organic or grass-fed or anything like that. We set our business standards on a corn-fed Iowa product. It's Iowa, Kansas, Nebraska is where we get our beef. And it is nothing but choice and prime. Those of you that know what that means, you know what it means. I'm not going to go into that spiel today. But basically the way it breaks down, you've got 2% and 15%. Those are the top 2 grades. So that's what I carry. I carry that, and it's corn-fed, and that's all I do. Now, when I move to a different market, and attempt to open up, say, an Allen McKinney, Northern Plano, Frisco, Louisville, any of those areas, I know for a fact I'm going to start carrying some grass-fed, some organic, some bison or buffalo or anything like that, because that's what the market needs. I don't want to get into...
Now, how do you determine that that's what the market needs?
That's what the market is asking for up there, according to the people that I have that are friends of mine that work in the industry up there.
Okay, so
that's market research.
Okay, are you doing surveys? Are you listening to how far people are driving?
I'm talking to the market managers at the stores up there that are big businesses that I'm friends with.
So you're actually talking almost to your competition.
Yeah.
to see what
they're selling most
what
of.
they're selling most of, or
I'm
what
talking
they're
to
not
my
able to
suppliers
provide?
and asking. I'm talking to my suppliers and asking what they're selling up north,
Okay.
slightly north of me, because
So those-
I have a very wonderful relationship with my supplier. He has been a great friend of our company
Right.
for years and years, and he's the first one. Whenever I call him to make an order, we go down my inventory list, and if I don't order a certain thing, he'll ask me about it. Go, hey, do you have this? And I'll go double check. Oh shit, I forgot about that.
Right.
Yeah, no, I need a case of that. So, that's really when I want to go, and we'll talk at some point about the difference between organic and commercially available and all that fun shit,
Right.
because that's really, it's a way different world than what you have been led to believe. Not going to get into that right now, but
that's an interesting strategy. I think a lot of people don't think of their competitors as a way to find new niches and find new markets and whatnot.
I cannot tell you
right?
how often I walk into a grocery store. I walk past the meat section every time, and I will
Right.
stop. I will look at their prices. I will look at what they're selling. I will find out if they're selling grass-fed, organic, this, that, and the other, what their price differences are between it, what their prices are compared to mine, because that's all right there.
Right.
And figure out, is this something that I compete against? Is this something that's even worth it to me
Right.
to try to compete against? Or is it
Sometimes it's just
again,
not worth it.
what we were talking about last week, is it better for me to go ahead and say, you know what, you want to go to this place.
Right.
Because they're going to be able to take care of you right now.
Well, and I think that's a lot of danger that too many people run into, especially in small business, where they don't have, the leverage that a lot of the large businesses can, is trying to do everything. Mm-hmm. Yes, we can do it. Yes, we can do it. Yes, we can do it. You will spread yourself real thin, real quick, trying to completely fulfill every individual customer's needs.
I just had that happen.
Right, you just had that happen. I'm sure you.
Oh, yeah,
you,
all the time.
Right, you turn
All
it
the
down,
time, yeah.
right? Same thing.
How many times
right?
have you ordered it something special?
Yeah, right.
And then, 2 weeks later, you're calling the person going, okay, we got your credit card, but I'm not going to charge you because you haven't picked up your crap.
Well, you charge beforehand if it's something special.
I don't know.
That's not out of line.
That's going to happen from now
Yeah.
on. Trust me on that.
It's just that. So,
You're so pretty.
so you use your customers. Do you use other competitor or like?
Oh,
you
yeah.
said your niche.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Well, we're with ours, it is such a weird business that we entered in, and we are kind of a niche of a niche because
Very much so.
we're
Jesus.
not only are we selling these chemicals,
Mm-hmm.
we're then selling them to even this more select, narrow spectrum of the population.
Who else sells
So, I would say, I don't want to give my competitors any
Well, no,
press
but-
that they aren't paying
But like,
for.
what areas?
But,
what areas are the same chemicals? Like, what industries are the same chemicals sold to?
So I would say around here, there are, in this region, I say pretty broadly speaking, there are probably maybe 3 or 4 suppliers that are similar that sell the kind of stuff that we sell.
Okay.
And the difference between us and them
Mm-hmm.
is I'm very hands-on. Anything that I sell is usually something that I experiment with. We just took on a new line of epoxies. And one of the first things I did was I started playing with it, making molds with it, making whatever, and getting fluent in it. Because my thing is I don't want to sell anything that I have not used because I can't explain it. And that drives me nuts. That's where my control freak part takes over, because if I am selling a chemical to somebody,
that's also your strong side in that, because you aren't just a supplier. You offer the information, the instruction, the help in that area.
There's a chemical company that supplies us that a good example of how we judge this stuff is they supply us with some of the fillers that we sell and fillers for resins and things like that. We are actually one of their smallest customers,
right?
Because they do not really want to even sell in anything smaller than a truckload. Mm-hmm. So we are kind of an inconvenience, but they humor us because we're an interesting business.
Right.
We're interesting people, and they like coming by seeing what
a lot of small business runs into that awkward space, right? Too small for the big guys, too big for the small guys.
So
right?
that's where,
and we love it.
So that's where, and there's a lot of things in the chemical industry, or things that we sell that are like that, where the manufacturers of chemical X or this additive or whatever, they don't want to sell an ounce of it to somebody in their garage.
Right.
They want to move a barrel of it and be
Right.
done with it, and they do not want to have to answer. They don't want to have to answer the phone and spend 30 minutes explaining how to use 1 ounce of stuff. They won't do it.
Right.
So that's where we come in and we say, okay, we will sell you that ounce, and then the happy medium we found with our customers is, we will answer questions on the phone, but we also want people to be educated. And that's where the YouTube videos and things like that come into play, because we could say, we have this free information. This is a very visual craft. You can pull up a tutorial, watch how to use this stuff, then call me up, and then now we're speaking the same language.
Right. Well, and if you're set up like that, your supplier then is also very likely to send you customers where they're
Yes, exactly.
where people come to them and they're just way too small for them to deal with.
Well,
You're
and
the
that's
person
the
that you
ideal,
talk to, and it's the
vendor
question.
or manufacturer and distribution. That's the ideal relationship.
Right.
Of we run interference for the manufacturer,
Right.
where we're educating the people on the end users. So yeah, ultimately that's what we brought to that table. That's not there. There's a lot of people.
And why
that,
they put up with you and your size.
yeah, and there's a lot of other suppliers, but they are
had an
very
interesting
big
comment.
industrial suppliers.
Okay.
And they are not conducive to people coming in off the street. So.
Okay. Yeah.
First off, business card check.
Oh, we haven't done that.
Yeah, we haven't. It's supposed to be a random little.
It's supposed to be our ongoing thing. So
Yeah,
yes,
so
I do actually
here's our
have.
business cards.
So we always like to do this.
We all avoid the nose of shame.
Nose of shame.
Where do I?
Nose of shame.
You got your cards? Oh, yep. You got your cards.
Yes,
Cards.
I do.
Good.
Oh, we
Good.
cut
All
off
right.
one.
Oh.
Did we not cut off one?
Jamil, do you have your business cards?
It's not on the show.
And first off, I wanted to say hi to Chelsea Bartlett. I think
Chelsea Bartlett Markovic.
I'm Marowick. Yeah. All right. Cool.
Markovic.
So she was asking you
Yes.
specifically Middle Fair.
Middle Fair.
Middle Fair is some place that you might want to talk to Ray about bringing.
I'll
wine
send it
out
on.
to.
I'm not
Yeah,
with
no,
the winery
I
anymore, so I'll
understand
send
that. I
that
know
on.
you're
Okay, but
not
yeah,
with the winery
thank you very
anymore.
much. Yeah,
But
I'll Mid-Fair.
she did want to say
There's
that.
Mid-Fair, there's TRF. There's a number of different Renaissance fairs. With alcohol, the laws change as soon as you cross state lines. So there's 50 sets of laws with regards to alcohol, 51 when you include the federal government.
Uh-huh.
Plus there's 3 different types of alcohol, beer, wine, spirits. So 51 times 3. And
150.
then there's manufacturers, retailers, and distributors.
I can math. That is hard.
So times 3 again. It's a mess. On-site, off-site. It's the biggest cluster F I've ever seen as far as legal stuff. So I'm not necessarily upset about being out of
She
the
also
industry.
said something to you. Mold the pregnant bellies. Do you do that?
Well,
I
have
do
you-
not. I do
Well,
not.
yeah, I know you're a
but yeah,
you're a
and that's
supplier.
again, we have done that to help customers, and we supply customers with the stuff to do that. And yes, that is. Thank you. Who is that?
This is Chelsea.
Same one. Chelsea
Bartlett.
Thank you,
Markovic.
Chelsea. Thank you,
Markovic.
Chelsea, for asking a very family friendly application of our products. Thank you.
Yes.
Even on our show, which is impressive.
That was. I appreciate.
Well, how do you think they got those
Softball.
pregnant
Right,
bellies?
but so in that situation, you send them to.
Thanks for taking it right back.
Alan's losing his talking privileges.
Oh God. You should cut
But
the
that's
show.
an example of how, in the same way that, because I would imagine that you would be able to send someone to someone that does that kind of casting or does that sort of family-oriented, like holding hands or maybe a special effects makeup.
There's a surprising number of small shops around Dallas that very
And I
few of
brought
them
it
do
right back
that.
around.
Very few of them do that exclusively, but a lot of them that do other things, like a lot of them that do special effects, will then also do hand casting and things like that. And recently, we had actually. This was a really weird one. Somebody called up and asked if we would go and mold someone at a funeral home. And I don't do that just because I can't get away from the shop and all that. And that's really not my bag. But I called up one of our customers that does that sort of thing, and I said, or that does hand molds, and I said, hey, you want to go to a funeral home and mold a guy's hand? But it has to be done like
Now.
today.
Yeah.
They have
They're gonna
so
be
many
buried in
hours
3 days, yeah.
to do this, and it has to be done like pronto. So we said sure, and we set them up with the people who had called us, and there's a whole odd vibe to the whole thing.
Oh, very much.
And
so.
which, of course, a cadaver hand. I mean, that's pretty weird anyway. So we're like, well, hey, so we were happy. We had played matchmaker. We put the customer with the other customer, sent them off, and I get a call a little while later, and they said, the guy that I referred calls me from the funeral home. He said, hey, I'm about to mold this dude's hand, but did they tell you what happened to him? And I said, no. I heard he was, he had died young, a tragic accident or something. And they were like, no, that's not what happened. I'll tell you later. So he calls up later, and he tells us that this dude was put to death by the state of Texas.
Oh, wow.
And they only had this narrow envelope because his body had come back. And
wow,
he had what amounted to a fan club that all wanted a copy of his hand.
Whoa.
The hand, and this is the part that gets really creepy, because then he had shot a code enforcement officer in. It just keeps getting it. But this guy,
but what a story!
He had shot a dude to death, and so we realized, like, I guess that's his trigger hand or something.
Right.
But yeah, so everybody wanted a copy of that. So.
Okay.
Yeah, we never know. You never know. I had just the other day. I had a lady come in that she molds fossils and things. And when they're doing whenever they're doing a dig somewhere, doing construction, and they run into graves, she comes out and exhumes the bones and checks and sees if there was any foul play, or if it's if it's old or young. And she referred to the new bodies as the gooeyes. She doesn't touch the gooeyes,
just the drys.
But yeah, she was telling us all about molding human bones that she finds all over the house. So yeah, so it's all over the place. But yeah, things like that pop up that you just nobody can quite prepare you for it. But that's one of the reasons why I don't. When they ask me, "Will you do this?" I say no. But and then again, I think, who needs this phone call right now?
Right.
Look through my list of people.
So do you, as a supplier to, and you supply your product, a lot of the people you supply to, I imagine, could do similar work.
Right.
Right. Do you, when you're forwarding business that you can't handle, do you do it based off who's ordering the most? Do you do it based off what kind of industry that they do? Like, I haven't heard from this customer in a while. Maybe they need the business. Like, there's interesting ways you could approach that. So
a lot of it is more based on our friendship with them. Just if we have a good relationship with them, it's not so much that we're handing them business, saying, "Hey, you're my buddy. Let me give you this." It's usually because we know they're a competent craftsman. But it's more
because your reputation is on the line there as well,
right? But it's more of an issue of there's some customers that do this maybe in their shop. They don't want the general public bothering them, period. So they do not want to be doing any of that. And in which case, there are certain people that want to that will do freelance work and don't mind their name being out there. So that right there, that narrows it down to just a few people that will recommend. Am I being left out of some kind of?
No.
Alan and I just
we have the ongoing question about how long the show is, and we're running longer than we normally do, or we're actually not running longer than we normally do because we said we're going to run an hour, and we never run an hour. We've run like 2 and 3 at times, and so I'm not super. We haven't run 3, but we've run. I don't think we've ever run anywhere close to an hour, so I'm not super worried about it.
No, I think the first one was like an hour and 15, and then this one was. Well, it's already at an hour 15.
Right. But anyway.
But
it's a fascinating discussion, right? Because carving your niche, it's one of those generic things that people talk about. But it's essential, right? Yeah.
The other topic here, we've talked a lot about exploring your niche. How do you find your niche? That's a real big question, and I think really what you
fast.
Well, yeah, I agree. Preferably as you're writing your business plan. Preferably.
Well, it's never what you want it to be.
It never is.
Right? It never.
But part of the essential part there is start somewhere.
Well, yes, I agree completely. Start somewhere, and then talk to your customers. Figure out exactly what you want, what your customers want from you. Is it something that cost-wise you can bring in relatively nicely, very easily? Speaking of which, do you need another beer?
Oh no, I'm good.
All right,
I'm
cool.
Good, thank you.
Is it
another sponsor opportunity?
Sponsored opportunity available? Wonderful beer.
Delicious.
Is it something that you can bring in reliably? Because that's a huge thing that has happened in my industry. I'll run into a supplier. They'll have a new product. They'll have a new company that's putting out something wonderful, and I'll get it in, and I'll love the ever-loving out of it. Yes, that was a bad word. I didn't say it.
So you already cussed earlier, so it's all right.
Well, not that one though.
Yeah, you did.
Did I use the F one?
I think you. Oh no, I used the S one.
I didn't use the F one.
All right. Anyway.
Yeah. Anyway, so they'll bring it in, and it's heads and shoulders above some of the things that we can get in.
Right.
And then very quickly, the quality tanks. About 4 or 5 months down the line, or if it's that good, they're out of it constantly. Yeah. And so if I try to bring in that whole branded product,
right,
I can't. So finding that niche, is it worth your time? Is it worth your money? Is there that much of a demand for it?
Mm-hmm.
Because I guarantee you, if I can get this specific type of brisket in, I would have brisket cooks from the entirety of Texas coming to buy them.
Well, yeah, and so like I've recently ran into that with engraving.
Yeah.
Right. So normally I'm doing very much kind of one-off type deals, but I met a lady who makes her own jewelry, right, or who does jewelry and supplies it, and she was wanting me to basically put her brand onto all of her bracelets, right? So it'd be the same mark over and over and over, right? Not something I normally do, but something I could look at, right? So I started looking at, okay, what type of material is it? What's the equipment involved? Because it's not equipment I currently have, right? And then, okay, how quickly can I pay this off? Can I get, how much of the first order will cover, at what point am I going to pay off this equipment? Now, in this situation, it's different because this is a one-time purchase of specialized equipment that then opens up a new market.
Very much so.
Right? As opposed to, yours where it's merchandise where it has to be the same every time. And it's different in your scenario where the chemicals, they figure out their recipe and it's going to be the same every time. It's not an agricultural product where there's always variance, right? Or a service product, or the service side of it, where there's always going to be subtle variance.
Well, and that's something that you and I had talked to one of our friends about getting a letter of intent, which I think would be a wonderful tool for that, and carving out your niche, especially when you're trying to ramp up production.
Well, yeah, I mean, getting a letter of intent.
And that's not necessarily where we're really trying to go with this one, but it does help.
Well, no, it does come into building and growing a niche, right?
Very
or
much
even starting a business, right? If you can find a group of customers that you don't have a business for yet, right? Then if you can get them to sign a letter of intent, you can then take that to the bank and be like, here's all these people who will order this from me if I can provide it, right?
The money's already there.
The money is there as soon as I have this machine. Here's how much the machine costs.
Help me.
Give me the money, right?
Give me the money, and I'll give you the money.
We have never been able. It's probably been a good thing. We have never been able to get a bank to give us more than nickels. We have, and a lot of it is because it is such a weird business.
Yeah,
it doesn't matter how much history we show them. Hey, we have all this. Look at it. It's ultimately you guys. We don't. We can't categorize it. This is such a weird thing.
I got a question for you on that. Are you using a large bank, or are you using a small bank?
I'm using a medium-sized bank, kind of a medium to smaller size bank.
Move to a smaller bank.
Yeah.
Very seriously on that. I have had they're willing to take more risks, specifically if you can show them much more. Now, again, I'm not an accountant, I'm not a lawyer or anything like that, but I have found that if you're working with a smaller bank, they are willing to work with you, specifically if the branch manager knows you. They are willing to bend over backwards, specifically if you have shown them time and time again that you will pay everything off on time. And they're willing to literally let you jump over the moon with them.
Well, and it's kind of a two-edged sword, because on one hand, there's times when I've gone to the bank and said, hey, we could really use a loan to help. And then there's times later on where I'm thinking, man, I'm really glad I didn't get that loan.
What about a revolving line of credit?
Well, now that would make more sense, and that's probably something that would help a lot. But the main thing is that I want to share with the viewing audience is that's kind of a two-edged sword. When you do that, you can easily wind up working for the bank.
Very
that can easily get out of control.
It's a trap.
Don't
it's been kind
take
of
more than what you need.
Yeah, exactly. So
God.
that can wind up being very expensive money. So it's been kind of nice that we are in that vein. That on one hand, that has restrained us in some respects. That we can't just run out and take on every product line we'd like to. But at the same time, when we do take on a product line, it's because we're able to buy it cash.
Right,
Yeah.
and you're able to really bring the stuff that you really believe in.
Yes.
To
Yeah,
market.
exactly.
And that's honestly exactly what you just said. That's probably good for you.
Yeah, if I could buy it, if I would want to buy it, and I'm comfortable using it and explaining it, then I know somebody else will.
Yeah.
Because that's.
Well, and then again, it just falls. Now, do you have employees?
I do.
What's your?
We have about, including me, there's 6 of us working.
Oh, cool. You're exactly with
Woohoo!
me. Woohoo! 6. Technically, no, I have a night guy, so 7.
Oh.
Wow.
Well,
And I love him. I love him so much.
throw out the red carpet
He's so
for Devin.
amazing. Yeah. Right.
Yeah, and that's again
There's
a subject for
employees
a
that want over
totally
here.
different discussion.
Oh, very much.
Oh, yeah.
But yeah, that in and of itself is another
Very much
rabbit
so.
hole, because that again can make or break you. Just a few key people is all it
Or a
takes.
few bad
All
people.
it takes to either make or break you.
Yes.
Yep.
Well, I think Joe and I are on this side of going, we'll work for ourselves.
Well, no, that's not
Well,
necessarily
it-
true.
we don't really have, there's no way to have employees
That's not
necessarily.
true. That's not true, actually.
Okay.
Right? I mean, you, for example, as you grow, right?
I can start an entertainment agency or something.
You can start an entertainment
Yeah.
agency.
But then they're contractors and not employees.
Okay, well,
Make them employees.
you could hire a salesperson,
Yeah.
right? If for nothing else than to find you more gigs,
Okay.
right? So that's an area you can grow, and then it allows you to focus exclusively
You can
on
hire
your
VAs
production,
and all
right?
kinds of
Or-
other things.
or honestly,
at,
one of the great-
look at
great
the larger
things.
magicians,
Mhm.
right?
They have agents.
They have agents. They have managers. They have other people, right?
Right.
Don't think that you won't have employees just because of your industry.
Well, no, but again, almost everything is exclusively contract work. So
Well,
they're
you're,
never
you're,
really
you're
employees.
exactly correct. But what that means is
At least
that
in my
you
industry.
take that contract work, and that's to. Now, are you an LLC? Are you a corporation?
No, I'm
Are
looking
you-
at
Or is it
doing
just
an
a
LLC.
DBA?
It's a DBA.
It's a DBA right
Yeah.
now. So
Sole
taking
proprietorship,
something
yeah.
like that, sole proprietorship. Honestly, like if I could go back over, and my grandparents have told me this over and over again, if I could go back and make it back into a sole proprietorship, it'd be a wonderful thing. But I'm an S class corp, so there's wonderful benefits.
Yes.
And there is crap loads of crap to deal with on an S class corp. But for instance, I know you're expecting soon.
I am. Is it showing?
Well, no, no. Your wife
I
has
have to go over there.
gorgeous.
I needed that phone number to mold.
Yeah. Is she interested in that? That'd be awesome.
I thought you were talking about me. No,
And then a
that
baby
might
or
actually
two,
be kind
right?
of fun. Yeah, yeah.
That'd be kind of cool.
Just when the baby comes, I'm over his arm.
There you go. Yeah,
We're
sure.
gonna
His
do
arm.
it.
Of course.
But
Now I know.
something to think about, something that might be very interesting, because she's going to have maternity leave and everything like that.
Yes, yes. Thank goodness.
Cold calling.
Yeah. Well, prospecting is a huge part of what I'm looking at doing now. I mean, word of mouth is great, and referrals are great, but those only go so far sometimes. And you have to constantly stay top of mind, which is its own job in itself.
Right.
I do feel like I'm doing like 7 people's jobs constantly. So, yeah, prospecting is
Well,
something
I mean,
I'm
a
very
personal
excited
assistant would probably be
Oh, my God,
the
but I
most
would-
amazing thing that
to.
you
Holy,
could ever do.
I would love that.
Yeah.
I would love that.
See, now that's
I just couldn't
a
keep
business idea that I had, and we need to sit down, and that's not for you guys. We need to sit down and we need to talk about, because I had an idea about a year ago, and there are some things that are doing it, but they're not doing it right. So we'll talk
share
about
it
that.
so that you
Yeah,
can get it
no.
out there. But
Well, yeah.
and that kind of gets down to kind of bring back to the topic. What I've found is within any industry, right? You can build your niche not only in your product offering or your service offering, but also sort of in how you get to your customers, right? So you look at Dell, the computer company, for example,
right? And then it was direct sales of computers as opposed to in retail stores, as opposed to lots of different ways, right? That's another way. So it's not necessarily building your niche in terms of your offering or your service, but your approach is even an interesting way to build your niche and develop it and whatnot, right? So like one of the people you're saying you go up against is so much of their focus is online, right?
They do a lot of Facebook advertising.
Do you do some sales online? Do you?
No, I actually am not set up for online, mainly because what we do is so much focused on what the customer themselves want, and there's just entirely too many questions.
Okay.
And we don't have an interface set up yet on our website
Yep.
where we can get all those questions answered before you order.
Okay.
So honestly, almost every email that I get, if it's a how much is the price of this, I can answer that real quick.
Right.
If you have it.
It's do you carry whole pigs? Boy, that's a whole long conversation that I need to have with you. I need to have a credit card up front. I need to this, that, and the other. And when do you need it?
Right.
Because I need about a week lead time.
It's like when people call me and ask me, they go, "Hey, so we wanted to have you for an hour. What does that cost?"
No.
It's like I can't even begin to answer that. And then they want to talk to me through text message or something. Like, we need to have at least a phone call or talk in person. And I can't quote you what I don't know what you want. Do you want a stage show? Do you want walk around? Who is it for? Right? What kinds of things? What do you see in your head? Right? And so it's not a one size fits all kind of thing. You have to have a conversation with them, and so much as just a call and a price check. And I'm like, I don't know what you need.
Yeah.
Right.
Or my favorite.
Well, and it's the exact opposite with you because your
supply
side.
Oh yeah,
change,
which
right?
is wonderful.
It is.
Well, no,
it's good and bad because
yeah.
on one hand, like kind of like the situation you're in, so much of our stuff is so specialized, and we are more expensive than our competitors. Because one of the things we do, kind of like what you've done, we've sought out. Okay, what are the supplies? What are the higher grade silicones and things like that? Yeah,
the top tier.
Yeah, so we want to bring in the good stuff. So when people say that, well, how much is your silicone? Well, I'll tell you, but like what you're saying, it's
what are you getting for that?
Yeah,
right?
this is not. We had a guy come in that he brought in some of our competitors' silicone, and he called me up, and he drove all the way from Rockwall to our store to get to
show you how it was done.
Well,
right?
well, no, he wanted more silicone, and he told me, well, I got this silicone X, and I opened it up, and it's set up in the containers. It's no good, but hey, I want something like that. And so he comes in, he brings it in, he sets it down on my counter. I want something like that. I'm like, well, no, you don't want something like this because this doesn't work.
Right.
Yeah,
that's why you came
here. So right now, I'm going to tell you, I have something better. But so I show him this something better. I showed him our silicone. And he's like, well, that's $42, and this was like $25. I'm like, yeah,
but this works.
But it didn't work.
This works.
You drove all the way from Rockwall with some bogus silicone to tell me how it doesn't work. Obviously,
the obvious question is, well, do you want to buy 2 of those?
It's not even that.
$50, or one of these that'll do it right the first time.
Yeah, exactly.
It's not even that.
And that's why
he wound
up leaving in disgust because I told him I wouldn't come down on the price. He wanted me to. It was like, this is not.
Meet him in the middle.
This is not. Yeah, this is
haggle.
not a. These are 2 different products. It's like somebody going, well, now my cousin Ernie's a clown and he does all that stuff and he'll do it for $5. So how about you come down to?
Well,
why don't you just go hire Ernie then?
Yeah, exactly.
What are you talking to me for?
Exactly, and that's what I said. Obviously you have this stuff. It didn't work.
I've met Ernie. He's a very nice man.
Oh, he's great. He's a great guy, but
And clowns are awesome sometimes.
He's had all his shots. Come on now.
he's had all his shots.
But that was a perfect example of we have that kind of thing happen all the time where we have to explain. It's like, yes, you're going to get sticker shock initially when you hear my price versus
you're getting a
brand
much
X.
higher quality.
But
product.
at the same time, if your manufacturing process depends on this component, you want that to work.
Spend the
you
money.
don't want to keep
Right.
throwing crap at the wall until something sticks.
Or maybe you want something, and this might not be something that I carry. You maybe want something in between the 2.
Right.
And you need to go find that. That's
Right.
not what I
And
carry.
that's-
I carry the top tier. I do not carry
Right.
what you're going to find.
And that's what Hobby Lobby and Michaels and those kind of places. That's great for that, and we are not going to fight with them over that business. And
they do great at what they do.
But that's the kind of stuff that.
But if you want it done professionally,
like you said, when people
it's
to do a price check with you, basically it's like we're not Walmart. This is you're coming to me because we're going to be able to educate you and we're going to be able to walk you through this, and we can help you troubleshoot it when something goes horribly wrong. We're still there for you.
Well, yeah, and I think that kind of gets into it. A good area when it comes to building your niche is choosing where not to. Right, choosing where not to grow. Right, because there are areas that you will have the opportunity to look at. Right, you could carry every possible grade of silicone, and then let people choose what they think they wanted. Right, but that's not what you want to do.
Right.
That's not the
it's kind of like
to take.
To use your industry. It's like kids parties. There's always a kids party to be done.
Right.
I mean, you could stay busy doing all that, but you would also still live barely above poverty level.
Right. It's like, how hard do I want to work?
You would work a tremendous volume of shows.
Right.
To get almost nowhere.
That's exactly right. So
but the work's always there if you want to do it.
Right. It is there, but yes, it's how hard do you want to work? And
how do you want to work?
And how do you want to work? Right?
Well, and for us, with the different grades of, say, silicones, for instance, we got to look at, because we have Chinese manufacturers all the time asking us, hey, will you carry our silicone in your store? And it is much cheaper. I mean, hugely cheaper, to the point that it is very tempting. But I have to look at, okay, if something goes wrong,
who's it going on?
Yeah, it's going to come down on me, and how much of my time do I want to spend putting out these fires and taking care of all this? It's not worth it. It's like, if somebody gets something for 20%
in that situation, will you take a sample and then run it a few times to see how it works?
Well, again, kind of like what you're saying.
Exact same question.
That's like what you're talking about. When you're talking about people across the ocean from you, if the quality changes, you paid up front. You get what you get. And we've heard some, I know this is on a totally different vein, but we have some friends of ours that just moved to a bigger facility. The facility they moved into, they got it because the company in China that was making their little widgets for them, when they found out they were about to move their production away from this Chinese facility, they sabotaged their product. And they got a shipping container full of bogus product, and they sold it. It went out the doors, and it put them out of business.
Oh my God!
So that's the kind of stuff that I think about. At least we try to deal with. So we try to deal with people that, if we have any kind of issue, they're within arm's reach, so to speak, and I could say, hey, I like to have a good enough relationship with all my suppliers that I can fly to their factory and say, hey, guys, we really see a need for this new chemical. Is that something that's even possible?
Right.
And they'll work with us.
We've had a similar issue back when I was at the winery with honey. And not to pick on China, right? But the issue was with China, right? Because China...
Hi, China. entire country. Hello.
The good and the bad side of China is that they are masters of making it as cheap as possible.
Yeah.
Sometimes too cheap, right? They far too cheap.
Yeah.
Well, it's
race to the bottom.
About at the beginning. It's just a race to the bottom. Yeah. Exactly.
In that situation, but the Chinese were bulking up honey with corn syrup.
Oh.
Right,
you can make wine out of that, can you?
Wow.
No, you can.
But
you can, but it's not honey anymore. And then there's all sorts of other issues with labeling and everything else, right? So that they would take honey and then literally just pour corn syrup into it to bulk it up. And so we had to be very careful with our supplier, right?
Wow.
Partially because of the kosher certification, that we had to be able to track everything back to source, but to be able to know, okay, how legit is this?
You know what we need to have? We need to have a horror story episode.
Oh God, I've got them.
Probably could.
I do too.
I've got them.
I do too.
But yeah, so.
But no names will be named.
That's fine.
Speak for yourself.
Just blur faces.
But choosing the right vendor and even vendor management helps kind of determine what your niche can be and how stable it can be.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So if your suppliers, whatever it is, if it's going to be varied every time, right? Maybe that's just the nature of the supplier. You're a guy I knew did geodes, right? Like the rocks.
That's very varied.
Well, it was interesting because he bought them whole.
No, break them open.
No.
No.
He would get them most of the way so that you could then buy and break them open. Right, so you'd actually be the first person ever to do that, right? Which was this really cool thing.
Yeah, it's a great idea,
right?
Until you don't end up with an actual.
Until you don't end up with one, right? Well, so his was going to be very varied every time.
Yeah.
Right. That's sort of the nature of it.
Right.
And you have to.
Which might be novel.
It might be novel, right?
So.
And if that's what you're going for, is the novelty, right? Because you can. His selling point was that you are the first human being on Earth that will get to see the inside of this.
Yeah.
Right. Pretty cool.
Cool little thing.
And so, yeah, there was variance, but there was still the part that mattered was reliable, right? They were all geodes.
They were all actual geodes,
right?
Okay, because
I
remember plenty of those that you used to buy at like the Discovery Channel store that they said they were geodes,
and
then they weren't geodes.
And so, identify what are the essential components of your supplier, of your product, and be sure that at least the essential pieces are always there, right? So your containers that you're receiving it in may change. Right? I don't know how much your customers want. Do you guys do repackaging? Do you guys buy in bulk and then sub-package?
We do on some products.
Okay.
Some we do, some we don't. So, yeah, we see that where, in fact, we were just looking at, because everything we deal in is very sensitive to moisture contamination, atmospheric issues, oxygen
temperature
can't get in. So, say again?
Temperature sensitivity?
Temperature is not as big as temperature is more because it's kind of becomes a carrier for humidity. So, mild, damp weather, that's our enemy. So we have to be really careful about that. UV really is. I mean, we store everything in a warehouse anyway. But temperature up and down, that's really not the issue. It's unless it's water based, it's more of an issue of is it exposed to humidity.
Okay.
So where we have to watch out is every spring. We have to be uber careful to make sure we've got the air dried out.
Freaking summer rains that come out.
Yeah, that's
90 freaking degrees, and it's 100% humidity.
So and
then
on the user end too, we have people that once the product's out of our control, when they're using it in their shop and they have contamination, so containers and things like that, that's all a big deal. A few years ago, we were having to really carefully investigate different types of containers that all were GHS compliant, good seals and all that kind of stuff. So, yes.
Very cool. So, did you have some more research or other areas you had done on niche or anything else?
That's about it right now.
Okay.
I think we're about ready to wrap up.
Anything else you'd like to? What's your YouTube channel, your website?
Yeah.
How do we find you?
brickintheyard.com.
Okay.
Which people get confused sometimes because we are a BITY mold supply, BITY mold supply, which stands for Brick in the Yard.
Right.
Okay. And so it's brickintheyard.com is our website. And then if you go there, there's little buttons for our social media on the left-hand side of the screen. Or you can just go to YouTube and search Brick in the Yard, all one word, and you'll find us.
Okay.
And we have all kinds of tutorials on everything from molding people to,
Abby.
widgets and things. Yeah, Abby. Abby's actually, her head mold, I think, is one of the tutorials we have.
Oh, wow, okay.
Abby,
so,
we love you.
Yeah, so she's out there. We have all kinds of stuff like that.
Okay.
So,
well, great.
Family friendly.
Of course, we also want to thank One Up Definitive Studios.
One Up Definitive Studios, that's where we're filming today. So thank you very much for letting us film here and use your facilities. You can talk. Now you're back on.
He's ready to go.
Doesn't matter. So we will see you next week. Who's the guest next week? Do you know?
I don't know yet.
Yes.
So our guest next week is going to be LaDonna Stein.
Oh,
okay.
We're going to LaDonna.
Yeah, we're doing LaDonna from LaDonna Stein Hair and Makeup here in Dallas. She works at Dallas Pinup and owns her own little studio. She's one of the premier pinup artists, pinup makeup and hair artists here in Dallas. So we're really excited to have her in next week. And we'll see
you then.
Excellent.
All right. Well, until then, thank you very much for joining us here at the IWP Enablers, and we'll see you next week.
See you next week.
Bye.